Right, I now call, the tribunal now calls Mahmoud Hassan to deal with this issue from the point of view of the occupied Palestinian territories. Thanks very much and welcome. You have your 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'm actually, good evening. I'm actually want to talk in Arabic. Someone has to translate to me.
Of
He isn't here.
Do we have please? Thank you.
He disappeared.
I think we have a translator there. The ladies beat you to the plinth, so thank you. Thanks for your offer. Thanks very much, Ambassador.
I'll do my best.
I'm sure you're very good at this. Thanks very much. Go ahead.
بعد المحاضرة اللي حكيتها أميلي يعني مجبر إني أغير كلامي شوي.
I will have to modify a bit my talk after having heard Emily.
في الحقيقة أنه جميع الأعمال الإجرامية التي قامت بها حكومات إسرائيل منذ
All the criminal acts of the Israeli state after 1948
وحتى اليوم
and until today,
الأعمال الإجرامية التي قام بها الجيش الإسرائيلي
all the criminal acts of the Israeli military,
جهاز المخابرات
the secret service,
لاقت هذه الأعمال مصادقة من المحكمة العليا الإسرائيلية
were legalized by the High Court of Justice of Israel.
تحت وطاء قانوني
And they were under juridical cover of the Supreme Court.
منها ترانسفير مصادرة الأراضي
Whether the transfer or the confiscation of land,
طرد الفلسطينيين
the expulsion of Palestinians,
إعدام خارج القانون
the extrajudicial killings,
بناء الجدار الفاصل
the building of the wall,
الاعتقال الإداري
the administrative detention,
التعذيب وغيرها
torture, and all this
من انتهاكات حقوق الإنسان
of violations of human rights.
كل هذه الأمور لاقت تأييد من المحكمة العليا
All these acts were legalized by the Supreme Court.
وحسب رأيي أن المحكمة العليا الإسرائيلية
And
هي أداة
according to me, the Supreme Court is an instrument
سياسات إسرائيل
of the implementation of Israeli policies against Palestinian people.
وأعطت ضوء أخضر
And the court has given a green light to the different Israeli governments
للانتهاكات
to implement these violations against the Palestinian people.
عندما أعطت المحكمة قرار إيجابي لصالح الفلسطينيين
Even when the court gave a positive decision towards the Palestinians,
عودة قرية برعم
for example, like the return of Bir'im and Ikrit,
رفضت الحكومات الإسرائيلية
the following Israeli governments refused to implement the decision of the High Court.
وهذا يدل أن المحكمة هي ضد الفلسطينيين ولا توجد أي
This is
عدالة
another
للفلسطينيين
proof
في المحكمة.
that the Supreme Court or the High Court, how do you call it, Supreme Court or High Court in Israel? High Court of Justice of Israel is not really a reference for the Palestinians.
هناك حقيقة يجب أن تعرفها المحكمة.
The jury must know, as the audience,
الخطة لإقامة المحاكم العسكرية وضعت
the strategy that was used in 1963 to organize military courts.
قبل الاحتلال الإسرائيلي
Before the Israeli occupation, 4 years before the Israeli occupation started.
كانت خطة مفصلة.
It was a detailed strategy, a complete one.
كان القضاة النواب العسكريين
The judges, the officers were all known.
أماكن المحاكم كانت معروفة.
The places of the military courts were already determined.
وهذا يدل أن إسرائيل كانت لديها النية لاحتلال.
And that proves that Israel had a plan to occupy these territories already in 1963.
المحكمة العسكرية
The military court,
فقط الفلسطينيين.
the military court only judges Palestinians.
ويخضع الفلسطينيين ليس فقط للمحاكمة العسكرية.
And the Palestinians are subjected to military law,
المخالفات الأمنية والنظام وإنما
not only in violations of military law,
جميع نواحي الحياة.
but all aspects of life of every Palestinian citizen.
سياقة السيارة.
For example, traffic problems, traffic violations. If you drive without a driving permit, you go to a military court.
ولكن المستوطنين.
But the settlers never go through these military courts.
والمحكمة حتى داخل إسرائيل عندما تحاكم مستوطن.
even when Israeli civil courts in Israel
قيامه
judge a settler for a violation against a Palestinian citizen,
بتكون المحاكمة صورية.
the court is a fictitious one, is a virtual court, really.
هناك مثل يعني واضح للعيان
A clear example,
96
in 1996, for example,
أحد المستوطنين
one of the settlers killed a Palestinian child.
عندما ضربه بالحجارة على رأسه.
He hit him with a stone on his head until he killed him.
حكم هذا المستوطن
This settler was only condemned
6 أشهر بخدمة
to 6 months of public service, of civil service.
وعندما يكون الموضوع عكسي أي
When it is the other way around, when the Palestinian is accused of having killed an Israeli,
عقوبة حتى السجن المؤبد.
he can get perpetuity, he can get life sentences.
بالإضافة للقوانين العسكرية والقوانين المدنية التي
Apart from civilian and military regulations
تفصل بين الإسرائيليين
that separate between Palestinians and Israelis,
إسرائيل تقوم بالإعدام خارج القانون.
Israel does extrajudicial assassinations.
خلال الانتفاضة الأولى
During the first and second intifada,
بإعدام المئات من
Israel has condemned to death
بدون محاكمة.
hundreds of Palestinians.
بدون محاكمة.
Without judgment,
الإعدام كان يتم في كل الأمكنة في البيوت
the death sentence could happen anywhere, in houses, in offices,
بأماكن العمل في الشارع.
in public places in the street.
بالنهار.
It could be at night or during daytime.
واستخدمت إسرائيل
And Israel used
الأسلحة
all sorts of arms to implement the assassination.
بدءا من المسدس من
Starting with a gun,
صفر
very close range gunshot,
حتى استخدام الصواريخ
to missiles and bombing by airplanes.
حتى اليوم لا توجد هناك إحصائية كم هو
Until today, there is no real census of the number of Palestinians that were killed extrajudicially.
إسرائيل ترفض نشر هذه.
Israel refuses to publish the names and the evidence of these assassinations.
وجهاز المخابرات الإسرائيلي
And intelligence in the Israeli authorities
هو المسؤول عن
has a small committee
الإعدام خارج القانون
that decides
من يعدم.
that decides who is subject to these assassinations.
نحن لا نعرف على أي أساس.
We don't know what are the criteria for the decisions they make,
يعني الإعلام الإسرائيلي يقول
but the Israeli media
قائمة موجودة
says that there is a pre-established list of names.
ما تسمى قائمة أهداف.
It is called a target list,
وهذه الأهداف يعني
and these targets
لحيز التنفيذ عندما يكون الجو
are published in the very specific political periods where Israel decides to kill these people.
دور المحكمة العليا
The role of the High Court in Israel, in this case, was a very negative one.
في سنة 1900 بال 2006
In 2006, the High Court made a judgment
قالت أنها لن تتدخل في
saying that it will not intervene
الإعدام خارج القانون
in the extrajudicial assassinations.
طلبت من جهاز المخابرات
And
أن
it
يعمل
asked
لجنة خارجية
the intelligence to make
الأدلة
a committee from outside
الأدلة
to examine the proofs that the intelligence have, to study
هذا الشخص
whether these persons targeted
توجد هناك أدلة ضده لقتله
had reasons to be killed, had
حتى اليوم لم تقم هذه اللجنة.
alibis or justifications for their killing. Until today, this committee has never functioned.
أنها لن تفحص كل حالة على حدة.
And the High Court refused to judge case by case.
وهذا يعطي الضوء الأخضر
This, of course, is a green light for the secret intelligence to pursue more extrajudicial assassinations.
وهذه الإعدامات مستمرة.
And these assassinations continue every day.
منذ يعني أسبوع أو 10 أيام.
A week ago, Israel killed this way people in Gaza
بدون أن نعرف
without any proof of anything that is reproached to their activities, or whether they could have been arrested if it's true that there were evidence against them.
وأيضا حتى عندما كانت تكون هناك إمكانية لاعتقالهم لأن القرار
Even when there were possibilities of arresting them instead of killing them,
كانوا يقومون بقتلهم.
they went ahead and killed them.
يعني أحد القتلى أو
For example,
المعدمين
one of those condemned to death is Abu Ali Mustafa,
بمكتبه
who was assassinated in his own office
محاولة
without even any attempt at arresting him,
أن يعطوه فرصة
without even giving him a chance
للحضور أو إعطاء أي
to go and testify in front of a court
تصرفاته.
or the army.
وهذا يدل أن هناك نية مبيتة بالقتل.
And this is a proof that there is a predetermined strategy in these assassinations.
التعذيب موجود
Torture exists
ضد جميع المعتقلين
against all Palestinian prisoners.
يبدأ التعذيب من
Torture starts from the minute they are arrested.
هناك ضرب من
There is beating from the minute they are arrested until they get to the police station.
وهناك العزل.
And then there is isolation for 90 days.
وهناك قضية الشبح.
Then there is what we call shabah, which is hanging people by how do you call it? Shabah.
التهديد باعتقال العائلة واعتقال
Then of course threatening to arrest members of the family.
وهذا ربما يفسر الاعترافات.
And this of course explains why there is so much, why people talk, why arrested people give evidence in order to stop torture.
وأيضا التعذيب لا ينتهي فقط في فترة التحقيق.
But torture does not stop only in the interrogation period. It can continue. And for me, the worst torture is when the detainee admits crimes he never committed, because the witness accounts can take years later on in court. And this explains why there are so many cases where ultimately they admit crimes they never committed.
Thank you very much.
You are extremely disciplined, I must say. Thank you very much for your brevity, because we are aware that you have so much to say. We'll put a couple of questions to you, and I recognize the barrister here, Mr. Mansfield, for the first question.
Yes, good afternoon. There are two precise questions. The first is, could you tell us, please, the name of the Supreme Court case in 2006 to which you've referred? We need this in order to consider the extent to which the Supreme Court recognized or didn't recognize targets for assassination. So do you have the name?
قضية حلمي شوشة هو الطفل الفلسطيني الذي قتل.
حلمي شوشة is the case, is the name of the case. In 1996, it was the child who was killed. I don't recall the name of the settler that killed him, but I can give it to you tomorrow. If I understood when...
I think there may be a misunderstanding. So
Yes.
it's not the case of the settler. It's the case that went to the Supreme Court in 2006 concerned with extrajudicial killing. Sorry, we don't have it. We would like...
هي كانت قضية رفعتها
It was a case
إسرائيلية ضد التعذيب
raised by ACRI, by the Israeli organization. Public Committee Against Torture.
يعني كان المحامي ميخائيل سفاراد
Michael Sfar was the lawyer.
وفيلدمان.
And Mr. Feldman.
القرار يعني ليس معي الآن ولكن
I don't have the details of the case, but I can give it to you. But that was in 2006.
I have one other question. The earlier witness, Emily Schaefer, didn't have time to deal with administrative detention and secret evidence. I wonder if you could just briefly inform us about administrative detention and its concept.
اوكي يعني اسرائيل تستخدم الاعتقال
Israel
الإداري
uses administrative detention in a very extensive way.
والاعتقال الإداري يعني
Administrative detention is
بدون أي
arrest without any due process or
بدون أي
accusation,
أدلة خارجية
without
أو
any
علنية.
proof or at least revealed evidence. All the evidence
جميع الأدلة تكون أدلة سرية فقط.
remains secret.
يستطيع القاضي فقط
Only the judge
معرفتها بدون أن
can
يعرف
look at it.
المعتقل أو المحامي.
The detainee and the lawyer has no access to these files.
وهناك قضية قد يعني تساعد على فهم موضوع الاعتقال الإداري.
We can use a case to explain what is administrative detention.
هناك كان شاب معتقل.
There was a young man who was in administrative detention for 2 years.
أصله من غزة.
He is originally from Gaza
متزوج من فتاة
and he is married to a lady from the West Bank.
وبعد سنتين من الاعتقال
After
الإداري
2 years of administrative detention,
أحد القضاة كشف المعلومات السرية.
one of the judges decided to reveal the secret file of evidence against him.
بالمعلومات السرية أن لهذا الشخص علاقة
In this
بشخص
evidence,
آخر في غزة.
it was said that he had a relation with another person from Gaza,
هذا الشخص منتمي إلى
and that other
منظمة
person
حماس.
is a member of Hamas.
يتضح أن
So it became
الأخ
clear
الذي يسكن بغزة
that
قد قتل خارج القانون
the man
عند اعتقال
from Gaza
هذا الشخص.
was killed in an extrajudicial killing,
ولكن إسرائيل حجزته لمدة أو
and they
اعتقلته لمدة سنتين
arrested this man for 2 years
له كان
only
علاقة بها
because
فيه.
he had a relation with his brother,
الذي قتل
who was killed
عند-
already in Gaza
عند الاعتقال.
when he was
هذا
arrested.
يدل على بشاعة الاعتقال
So
الإداري.
it shows
يدل
the
على
way
أن
the
لا
administrative
توجد
detention
عدالة
functions,
في الاعتقال الإداري. لا توجد
and when there
مقدمة
is no way
على
for the
المعتقل أي إمكانية
detainee
للدفاع عن
to
نفسه
resort to any defense
بالاعتقال الإداري.
or any way to protect himself.
Thanks very much. Just a quick question and hopefully a quick answer this time from our dear judge from Spain, Judge Martin Pallin. Thank you.
Thanks. En votre opinion, vous pensez que le gouvernement d'Israël, les autorités civiles et les militaires développent une politique d'apartheid ou vraiment tous les crimes, les tortures, les assassinats viennent à commettre un crime d'apartheid, non politique d'apartheid, crime d'apartheid. شكرا.
بتمارس جرائم أخرى. هل هي سياسة منفصلة ولا هي جرائم أفريقية؟ وهي سياسة منفصلة.
طبعا طبعا الحكومات الإسرائيلية منذ
The different Israeli governments since 1948
تعامل الفلسطينيين
treat
بغير
Palestinians
ما تعامل به اليهود
in a
الإسرائيليين.
different way that it treats with Israeli Jewish citizens.
وهذه سياسة مبرمجة.
This is an organized policy.
هذه السياسة تهدف إلى
This policy
أخذ الأرض من الفلسطينيين.
is targeted to take away land from the Palestinian people
الفلسطينيين
and to expel the Palestinian people from this land.
إسرائيل أو خارج
Whether it
فلسطين
is
خارج
in Israel, in 1948 territory, or the rest.
والجرائم التي تقوم بها هي لتنفيذ هذه
The
السياسة
crimes that the Israeli state perpetrates is to implement this policy.
وليست جرائم تأتي بالصدفة.
They are not crimes that come out of nowhere.
كيف نفهم أن تقوم المحكمة
How
الإسرائيلية
do we
بالحكم
understand
على
the fact that the High Court
يقوم بقتل
condemns an Israeli general who killed,
والقيام بمذبحة في كفر قاسم
who in
بال56
1956 was responsible for a massacre in Kafr Qasim?
تقوم المحكمة بالحكم عليه بقرش
The
واحد.
court condemns him to one, what was it, shekel? Qirsh.
قرش شدني.
So what, 1 pence? Cent, 1 cent. That was in 1956 in Kafr Qasim. 2 pennies.
هذا يدل أن لهذه
This shows
الحكومات سياسة
that these different governments have a policy
ضرب الفلسطينيين
of
وتشجع
getting rid of the Palestinian people,
الأعمال العدوانية ضد الفلسطينيين.
so they encourage aggressive attacks on Palestinians to
كيف نفهم
organize their expulsion.
كيف نفهم اليوم قيام المستوطنين
For
بفتح
example,
أشجار
today,
الزيتون
how do we understand or read the fact that settlers have the right to cut trees and burn trees
بدون أن تستطيع المخابرات الإسرائيلية
without
أو الجيش
the
الإسرائيلي
possibility of the
أو
army or the
البوليس
intelligence
الإسرائيلي
or the police
القيام باعتقال هؤلاء
to stop them
المستوطنين.
or arrest these settlers who burn all the agriculture of the
هناك
Palestinians?
اليوم بالضفة الغربية
Today in the West Bank, there are gangs
جماعات الجنجويد بجنوب السودان.
who are like the Janjaweed of South Sudan.
الحكومة تعطيهم غطاء.
The army protects them, it encourages them.
الجيش يعطيهم غطاء.
They are covered by the Israeli army security-wise. The army helps them to perpetuate all these acts.
ضد الفلسطينيين.
This is a policy. It's not only individual crimes.
Shukran. Thanks for dealing with us so well. And thank you to the ambassador who fulfilled this role very well indeed. We can see that you're a woman of great talent. Thank you. I'll employ you actually.